The world does not sleep anymore. Borders have turned into tripwires, and every mile of contested soil feels like the matchbox for a fire no one can control. Intelligence briefings now read like prophecy, where a single misstep or miscalculation could redraw the map of the 21st century. At the center of these briefings are 5 zones, 5 fragile lines, where the smallest spark could drag nations into a war they all swear they want to avoid, but none are prepared to step back from. In Washington, President Donald Trump has been handed folders stamped with the highest levels of classification. Inside them are not predictions, they are warnings. Trigger points, his advisors call them. Regions where American forces, Russian troops, Chinese patrols, or NATO allies stand so close that the line between peace and catastrophe is measured in seconds. To the American public, these places sound like distant geography, but in the Pentagon and the Situation Room, they are treated as live grenades already missing their pins. The first flashpoint sits in Eastern Europe, where the war in Ukraine has already transformed the continent into a chessboard of fear. Though front lines harden and soften with every season, the real danger lies not in the trenches, but in the skies and seas surrounding them. NATO has deployed rapid response forces into Poland, Romania, and the Baltics. Russian jets probe those borders almost daily. One pilot too aggressive, one missile radar lock misunderstood, and Article 5 could drag the United States into direct war with Russia. Trump's team, sources say, describes this theater as the world's most unstable tripwire. Not because of intent, but because of proximity. Every soldier, every fighter jet, every drone becomes a potential accident, waiting to escalate into the unthinkable. The second trigger zone lies in the South China Sea, a stretch of water that has become the most militarized shipping lane on Earth. China has built artificial islands, stacked them with runways and missile batteries, and declared them untouchable. The United States, alongside allies like Japan and the Philippines, insists on freedom of navigation, sailing destroyers and carriers directly through contested waters. Trump's naval briefings are blunt. If a Chinese missile radar locks onto an American ship, the rules of engagement force a response. Beijing's leadership, under President Xi Jinping, treats every U.S. patrol as an insult to sovereignty. The space between insult and open fire is measured in heartbeats, and in this waterway lies 30% of global trade. One exchange of fire here would not just be a regional conflict, it would shatter the arteries of the global economy. The third flashpoint sits along the tense border of the Korean Peninsula. North Korea has tested new generations of missiles, each one designed to strike further and faster. Kim Jong-un has wagered a survival on nuclear theater, firing weapons over Japan and issuing threats that ripple across Asia. Trump's advisors warn that the real danger is not just Pyongyang's weapons, it is the misinterpretation of them. A test that South Korea believes is an attack, a radar blip in Tokyo that reads as incoming fire, and the chain reaction that could follow. American troops are stationed in South Korea under mutual defense treaties. A single misjudged missile launch could force Washington into a retaliatory strike. From there, escalation would right itself. The fourth danger zone is one many Americans forget, but it pulses beneath the surface of every energy market: the Persian Gulf. Iran continues to expand its influence across the Middle East, while U.S. allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia watch nervously. Oil tankers move through the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point where one explosion could send shockwaves through fuel prices worldwide. Trump's briefings emphasize that Iranian naval units and U.S. patrols often pass within yards of each other in these waters. The risk is not a planned war, but an accidental one. A collision, a flare fired in warning, a misread radar echo. In an era where energy stability underpins national economies, one spark here could ignite more than just regional chaos. The fifth flashpoint is new, yet centuries old: the Arctic. Melting ice has unlocked shipping lanes once frozen year-round, and beneath those waters lie untapped reserves of oil and minerals. Russia has already militarized parts of the Arctic Circle, deploying submarines and bombers from new bases along its northern coast. NATO states, including Canada and Norway, see these deployments as aggressive plays for dominance in the polar frontier. Trump security teams warn that this zone is the least predictable of all. It is not yet a battlefield, but it is becoming a competition without rules. And when nuclear-armed bombers fly within sight of NATO air patrols, the risk of a misstep is always one wrong maneuver away. These 5 regions, when spoken of in the Situation Room, are not presented as hypotheticals. They are plotted on maps, tracked by satellites, dissected by intelligence officers who know that history does not need grand declarations to begin. It often starts with the small things. A pilot flying too close, a warship refusing to yield, a field commander reading silence as permission. Each briefing reminds the president that the next world war does not need planning. It only needs a spark. The unsettling truth is that no nation wants that spark, and yet all are preparing for it. The paradox is as old as deterrence itself. Weapons meant to prevent war by their very presence also make war more likely when the signals are misread. Trump's advisors have framed it in blunt terms. The United States must remain ready for the possibility that peace can end by accident. And in a world where the balance of power is fraying, accidents are more likely than ever. As 2025 unfolds, these 5 borders stand as the world's pressure points. They are not distant to those who study them. They are here, now, alive with tension. The folders stamped top secret do not ask when World War III will begin. They ask where. And in each possible answer lies the same chilling truth, that the war everyone fears could begin not with a decision, but with a misunderstanding. Borders are rarely just lines on maps. They are living frontiers, absorbing the weight of history, the ambitions of governments, and the fears of soldiers who stand watch with their fingers on triggers. What makes the current moment so volatile is not simply the existence of these flashpoints, but the way they connect, the way tension in one zone echoes across another. Analysts inside Trump's intelligence briefings describe it as a domino effect of instability. If one falls, the rest may not remain standing. Take Eastern Europe. Every skirmish on the Ukrainian front is watched in real time by NATO, and every Russian maneuver is mirrored by deployments in Poland and the Baltics. But here lies the signal no one misses. Russia is not fighting only Ukraine. It is signaling NATO. Each bombardment, each drone swarm, each artillery barrage is framed in Moscow's media as a demonstration to the West. And every NATO reinforcement flight, every armored convoy, every training exercise in Poland is seen by Russia as rehearsal for escalation. The danger is not just in what is happening, but in what each side believes the other means by it. Misinterpretation is the shadow enemy that haunts this border. In the South China Sea, the situation is even more complex. The waters themselves are not just about sovereignty. They are about the global economy. When U.S. warships cut through contested lanes, it is a performance of law. When Chinese frigates shadow them, it is a performance of ownership. Each maneuver is staged not only for the adversary, but for the world watching. And here, the trigger does not require a plan. A storm surge, a sudden engine failure, a single vessel colliding with another could all become the pretext for fire. The Pentagon's analysis has a phrase for this: accidental escalation. And in Trump's closed-door meetings, it is one of the scenarios most often rehearsed. Meanwhile, the Korean Peninsula continues to play out as a paradox of fear and theater. North Korea's missile tests are often staged to send signals to Washington, Tokyo, and Seoul simultaneously. But the technology itself has narrowed the window for error. Hypersonic warheads cut response time to minutes, not hours. A launch intended as a message could be misread as an attack. South Korean defenses would be forced to react. American radar systems would light up, and the chain reaction could outpace diplomacy. The irony is cruel. The very tests meant to prevent invasion by showing strength could instead invite the invasion no one wants. The Persian Gulf adds yet another layer of fragility. Unlike Europe or Asia, this region balances not only on military maneuvers, but also on the lifeblood of oil. Tankers moving through the Strait of Hormuz carry the world's energy arteries, and their vulnerability is staggering. U.S. naval escorts, Iranian patrols, drone swarms. all operate within visual range of one another. Every movement is interpreted as either provocation or deterrence. Trump's advisors frame it bluntly. It only takes one spark in the Gulf to set oil fields and alliances on fire. The volatility here is not simply strategic, it is economic. The moment a single tanker is struck, markets everywhere would convulse, pulling nations into the conflict, whether they wanted it or not. And then there is the Arctic, the cold frontier of the new century. It is less known to the public, but military planners talk about it with growing urgency. Russia's buildup of bases across its northern coast, armed with bombers and nuclear submarines, signals its intent to dominate the polar routes. NATO counters with reconnaissance flights and patrols, but the rules are unclear. Unlike the South China Sea, there are no established frameworks for managing disputes in these waters. It is the wild north, strategically priceless, resource-rich, and militarily unpredictable. Trump's security circles warn that this is where the silent race is unfolding. A single intercepted flight, a bomber straying too close to Canadian or Norwegian airspace, could trigger an incident with global consequences. When analysts look at these 5 zones side by side, they see more than isolated dangers. They see patterns, strategic signals that echo between theaters. If conflict erupts in one, others may ignite in sympathy. For example, a clash between NATO and Russia in Eastern Europe could embolden China to push harder in the Pacific, calculating that Washington's attention is already divided. Conversely, a confrontation in the South China Sea could convince Moscow that its own moves in Ukraine would go unanswered. This is the domino logic Trump is briefed on. War would not spread in a straight line, but in waves, each zone amplifying the next. It is not just about geography. It is about perception. Leaders in Moscow, Beijing, Pyongyang, and Tehran all monitor Washington's resolve. Every U.S. decision, every deployment, every signal of hesitation or determination is weighed as evidence of how America will act when the real test comes. And for Trump, those signals cut both ways. Too much restraint can be read as weakness. Too much force can be read as provocation. The balance is razor thin, but beneath the politics lies a deeper truth. In each of these flashpoints, the soldiers, sailors, and pilots are not operating with grand strategies in their hands. They are following orders, rules of engagement, and instincts honed by training. And it is here where the margin for error is thinnest. A pilot in the Baltics may have seconds to decide whether a Russian jet's maneuver is hostile. A captain in the Gulf may have seconds to decide whether a fast-approaching craft is a fishing boat or an attack vessel. These decisions, made at the lowest level, can trigger the highest stakes. Trump's intelligence folders stress this again and again. The next world war may not be declared in Washington or Moscow, but decided by a single human being staring at a radar screen. And yet, even as this reality is acknowledged, nations continue to stage their shows of strength. Russia launches military exercises on NATO's doorstep, designed to test nerves. China parades its carrier fleets, signaling defiance in the Pacific. North Korea fires missiles to remind the world it cannot be ignored. Iran deploys drones and missiles, testing the boundaries of deterrence. Each act is a signal, and each signal is open to misreading. This is why the briefings use a chilling phrase: strategic noise. In a world saturated with signals, the greatest risk is hearing the wrong one. As Part 2 closes, one pattern emerges clearly. These flashpoints are not just borders, they are mirrors. Each reflects the insecurities of nations and magnifies them through the lens of fear. And in this hall of mirrors, the margin between peace and global war is measured not in years or months, but in single moments of misunderstanding. Every briefing ends the same way. After the maps are folded and the screens go dark, the question lingers: is escalation inevitable, or can the signals be read differently? The truth is, war has always been as much about perception as reality. And in 2025, with Donald Trump back in the White House, the calculus becomes even more unpredictable. Not because of personality alone, but because the system itself, the architecture of deterrence, has grown fragile. The great powers know the risks. They can see the cliff ahead. The problem is, they cannot agree on how close they are to the edge. The intelligence analysts put it starkly. There are 5 border zones where a single shot could ignite war. But the deeper danger is not in the shot itself. It is in the signal that shot sends. Imagine a skirmish in Ukraine escalating into NATO deployments. Imagine a Chinese frigate colliding with a U.S. destroyer in the South China Sea. Imagine a North Korean test spiraling into a misinterpreted strike. Imagine an Iranian drone hitting the wrong tanker. Imagine a Russian bomber brushing too close to Arctic airspace. Each of these scenarios is not fantasy. They are rehearsed in war games, studied in simulations, whispered about in presidential briefings. They are not far-off hypotheticals. They are live wires waiting for a spark. What makes these wires more dangerous than at any time since the Cold War is speed? In the past, even during the Cuban Missile Crisis, leaders had hours, sometimes days, to weigh responses. Today, the window is minutes. Hypersonic weapons and AI-assisted surveillance systems compress decision time to a fraction of what humans once had. The paradox is chilling. The faster the systems become, the slower diplomacy feels. Leaders may want to pause, to verify, to consult, but the machines insist. And in that gap between human caution and machine urgency, catastrophe can bloom. Yet, amid this grim landscape, strategists also search for off-ramps. In Trump's briefings, the question is not only where war might begin, but where peace might still be engineered. The signals are not all hostile. Some point toward fragile opportunities. In Europe, despite the grinding war, there are back-channel discussions between NATO members and Moscow about deconfliction zones, small areas where each side promises restraint. These are fragile, easily broken, but they are signals nonetheless that even in confrontation, limits can be drawn. In the Pacific, U.S. and Chinese officers occasionally meet through hotlines established precisely to avoid miscalculation. These calls are not friendly, but they are necessary. And every time a misunderstanding is cleared, the world steps back from the edge, if only slightly. The Korean Peninsula remains perhaps the most paradoxical of all. North Korea thrives on attention, and its missile launches are often theater as much as threat. Yet, behind the theater, there is calculation. Kim Jong-un's regime understands survival depends not on actual war, but on the appearance of readiness for it. And so, every launch is a signal both of strength and of desperation. For Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo, the challenge is to decode which is which. Trump's advisors know the risk. Treat a performance as an attack, and you could start the very war Pyongyang seeks to avoid. In the Persian Gulf, the off-ramps are economic rather than military. Iran's maneuvers are not just about ideology, they are about leverage. Every drone over a tanker, every missile launch is a bargaining chip in a larger negotiation about sanctions and survival. The Gulf may look like a battlefield, but it often functions like a market. Signals are traded, prices are set, and escalation is used to raise the stakes before deals are made. But this, too, is fragile. The wrong strike at the wrong time could shatter the illusion of control and unleash something far deadlier than bargaining. And then there is the Arctic, where the silence itself is the message. Here, the absence of established rules makes every patrol, every flight, every base construction a signal in its own right. Russia's buildup is not just about defense, it is about claiming the future. Melting ice means new trade routes, new resources, new competition. NATO's response is cautious, but growing. And in Trump's briefings, this frontier is described as the slow fuse. It may not explode tomorrow, but it is burning quietly, and when it does reach the powder, the world will notice. So where does this leave us? In a world of signals, misreadings, and compressed timelines, the question becomes, what lessons does history still offer? Analysts return to the Cold War, not to copy its strategies, but to remember its wisdom. The doctrine of deterrence was never just about weapons. It was about communication. Clear signals, consistent posture, and credible restraint kept the peace. When signals became confusing, the risks multiplied. In 2025, the same principle applies, but the tools have changed. Social media, instant communication, and AI-driven surveillance mean signals travel faster, wider, and with less control. What one nation intends as reassurance may be read as threat. What one leader means as strength may be read as weakness. And here lies the final paradox. In a time when war could be triggered by a single shot, peace may depend on silence, on the absence of signals, or the discipline to withhold them. Analysts argue that restraint itself has become a form of signaling. When a ship passes without confrontation, when a drill ends without incident, when a hotline call prevents confusion, these quiet moments matter as much as the loud ones. For Trump, the challenge is immense. His briefings do not provide easy answers. They map risks, highlight dangers, and leave the hardest choices unresolved. But what they do emphasize is this: the world is not yet doomed to war. Signals can still be shaped, interpreted, managed. The 5 border zones are alive with risk, but they are also alive with possibility. Every deployment that doesn't end in conflict, every test that doesn't spark retaliation, every negotiation that doesn't collapse, these are victories, even if they do not make headlines. The future of war is not predetermined. It is being written in real time, in the silence before the siren, in the signals sent across skies, seas, and borders. The margin is narrow, the risks enormous, but the possibility of restraint remains. The story of 2025 is not only about how close the world stands to the edge. It is about how leaders, soldiers, and citizens alike respond to the signals that guide them there. And so, the briefings end as they begin, with a warning and a reminder. In a world of tripwires, the difference between World War III and peace may not lie in weapons or strategies, but in how we choose to read the signals before us.